presented by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY Sixers basketball or PHLY basketball, pardon me, and Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. That's how you get your Coors Light. Along with Derek Bodner, Rich Hoffman, I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is with us as well. You are hanging out with us there in the chat, and we appreciate it on a Sunday as the Sixers return home, trying to get off to a good start here and protect their home floor. And Derek, home sweet home it is after an 0-3 trip. Could have taken that Phoenix Suns game. Looked like that's the one that they were going to steal. It did not happen. And then the Lakers game happened. Everybody just wanted to get home. Here they are against an opponent that is 4-5 on the season, playing some fun, interesting level of basketball. That was my team. I said it would be a surprise team. And here we are, man. They're back home and with a chance to, with a tough schedule this week, at least one right in front of them where you would hope that they can find a way to win.
Yeah, you mentioned home sweet home, but they're like 1-3 at home too. So I don't really know if the,
it's a question
location.
Mark. It's a question mark.
There's nowhere that's sweet technically right now, but I understand what Devon is saying.
It's a question mark, man.
Because when you go 0-3 on a road trip, yeah, why not change the scenery a little?
That's true.
Yes,
that's true.
Yes, they couldn't wait to get home.
No, I mean, look, this is I feel like what we've been talking about a lot. This is a imperfect opponent they're going up against. You have a chance to win, but you have Paul George and a bunch of misfit toys, so who freaking knows? And all of these games that we've said that recently about, I feel like that was true. You had a chance to win a lot of these games, and the Raptors and the Pistons are going to gnaw at me for a long time. You have a chance to win this game, but you have to actually play good. You have to actually execute offensively. You have to take care of the little things, which this team, for the most part, has not done for a lot of the year. And you have to have Paul George go off. And be a little more aggressive. I like the floor game he was playing with the other night. I would have liked to have seen a little more offensively out of him in terms of hunting his own shot. Because quite frankly, it's great to be a facilitator, but there's a limited ceiling when you're facilitating to Caleb Martin and Kelly Oubre and Andre Drummond. We need Paul George to cook. And it will be interesting to hear what kind of a minutes restriction he's on, if he's still on that 30-minute restriction. It seems like they are really slowly, I hate that word. I hate this word so much.
Ramp.
It feels like they are really slowly trying to get him back into game speed. But if they can get even just pushing that 30-minute limit with him, that would be great too.
Yeah, it would be. What do you think, man?
They just need a result, man. They just Derek's been around me for a long time, and I think we've been at least fortunate to cover these guys in the regular season because they win 50 games every year. So we can talk about them in a way where we're talking about the quality of basketball they're playing. Like there are times fans will get on both of us where we would say, they played pretty well tonight. They just good opponent. Celtics shot it really well. Those type of things. They're not in that spot.
No,
they just need to win.
Yes.
It can be as ugly as you want. Like they just need a result because they haven't gotten any. And there was one thing I checked because watching that Lakers game the other night, it just was like, oh man, these guys are really going to shoot the lights out from three. This bozo shooting three-point shooting team was going to be able to make every shot. Opponents are shooting 40.4% from beyond the arc against the Sixers this year. And you guessed it, that is dead last in the NBA. They just need a team to get cold one night, man. Like, it's funny when in past years and some of those Doc Rivers shorthanded seasons, when the Sixers actually strung some of those wins together, it felt like they were on the other end of that spectrum where they had the Jedi three-point defense. Other teams just could not buy one from beyond the arc. This is the exact opposite. So they just need the Charlotte Hornets to miss a bunch of shots and Paul George to play like Paul George because he didn't really play like that the other night. Man, they just need a result. They just need a result.
What did you make of the West Coast trip? 0-3. We just talked about the Phoenix game. That was the one that we thought, as it played out, of course, on Monday, that they were going to take that one. They were going to start off the trip and steal one, and then Sixers things happened at the end, and they did not.
Yeah, and I think that was the most encouraging game. Well, I thought they played okay in 2 of the 3 games. I thought they played okay the other night, the Lakers game. Third quarter was obviously pretty bad, but Lakers shot it really well from beyond the arc in that game. But yeah, like it comes back to me just saying, you need a result. You need to take your chances. And you played well enough in that game to be up, what were they up? 9 points with like 5 minutes left. And the offense just got stagnant. It got to be a little bit too much PG. They forgot about Tyrese. Obviously, he had the bad body language on the one play. And they just needed like Yabusele to make one more shot too. Like they just needed goofy things to happen.
And that was the problem. They needed Yabusele to make one more shot, and that was down the stretch. And that was asking a lot for what he had already given them.
Yeah. So it's tough. And that really was the only game that they had both Tyrese and PG healthy for the entire game. I know. I don't think you can completely excuse the Clippers game. They were pretty much out of it by the time Tyrese had left. It was trending that way at least. But yeah, they looked pretty good in that game, right? Even though PG was rusty, like that felt like, all right, they got two guys who can run a pick and roll now. Even if PG's missing these shots, like he's getting decent looks, and it's easier offense to come by. So he's just going to have to put them on his back tonight, and they're going to need like Caleb Martin. Can you just make some threes tonight? Like, or somebody can Drummond. Can you stop playing like the worst center in basketball too? Because he's driving me crazy right now.
I was going to ask you that because, we have a decent amount of time here before the game starts, and there's only so much you can talk about these two teams.
Mm-hmm.
Devon and I talk a lot about this team. Although we talked to you a couple days ago. Are we being too harsh on Andre Drummond?
No.
Okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't going crazy.
No. Again, like he's not the only one at fault here. I was trying to think of like if we had a pie chart and we were divvying up the blame for this team. And obviously, 85% of it is the fact that just Joel is not here, right?
And when you've played 24 games and you've gotten, or you've played 8 games, a combination or a total of 24 stars playing, you've gotten what? 10? Yeah. That's
10 and 0 from the guy who really
matters. Yep.
Yeah, so that's most of it. But let's say we move past that because I got to say, they should not be this bad.
No, they should not.
They should not be this bad. Like they need to be a little more competitive. And I got to say, I am normally not a blame the coach guy. Nick Nurse, I think we can step off like, hey, this guy is easily a top 5 coach in the NBA right now. He has not covered himself in glory over these past couple of weeks. Like, look, I get it. They were not going to have a good record with Joel out. But this idea that they can't be competitive once a week, that they can't steal a game every once in a while, like an automatic top 5 coach maximizes whatever talent he has.
No, they're not 1-7 with Spo.
No.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm mad at a lot of people. I mean, honestly, Tyrese was not playing well enough to carry them in really any of those games. Obviously, he had the one great second half overtime against Indiana, but yeah, there's just a lot of blame to go around. But part of it is that Andre Drummond and Kelly Oubre in particular, who had kind of had career resurgences here in Philadelphia, obviously Drummond in his backup center role, Oubre as a starter on last year's team, just haven't been good. They've been losing basketball players so far.
Yeah. And
I've seen them be winning basketball players here, so I'm not giving up on them. But I think it's fair to say, like, come on, guys, we need more from you. So, yeah, you haven't been too hard on them.
It's not asking a lot of them. They're a professional basketball team that was built to have some pretty good depth. And while it does revolve around those 3 together out there on the floor, you still have an all-star out there with Tyrese Maxey, even with the attention that he was getting. These guys are still supposed to, even with the level up that we always say, everybody's playing a level up. Still supposed to be able to coach them into some good stuff, them execute the things that are supposed to be executed, and not get into a spot where you're playing with 5 seconds left on the shot clock, and now everybody's trying to get a shot to get a good shot there at the end of whatever play was drawn up. So that was part of the big frustration on the road. There was so many of those late clock situations where they just could not find themselves a decent enough shot as a professional to get a good look and knock something down.
What do you guys think about the offense they're running right now? Because I get it. They're limited, right? They don't have anybody really except Maxey, because PG is not as much of an advantage creator at this point of his career. He's just a guy that can get his own shot, and that can be really valuable. I'm not trying to rag on PG here. Obviously, they don't have a ton of juice in the ball handling, in the getting to the rim department. If Oubre's having a good night, sure. They don't run anything creative, man. They just run like an empty side pick and roll with 3 guys standing stationary on the other side. Well, if that pick and roll gets blown up, you got to have something else, right? Like Brett Brown, they used to pass the ball all over the court. And I get it. Those teams weren't successful either, but they were trying something at least, right? It just feels like Nick Nurse is this super creative defensive coach, and he's willing to, do whatever he wants, like box and one. He might press once in a while. He might do all that stuff. And then on offense, he's just like, all right, we're gonna gonna stand stationary on the other side, just trying to pick and roll for PG.
Yeah.
Come on, you got to have something better for that, man.
Derek, that was something that you and Kyle pointed out after the Lakers game.
Yeah, and I remember talking about it, when they had the coaching search coming up and looking at the Toronto offense and being like, hey, that's not the most inspiring thing in the world, but they don't have a lot of shooting, and all of their guys are 6'8" forwards who can't dribble. Maybe he'll be a little more creative here. And to be fair, at this point, they don't have a lot of dribbling or passing, which we've acknowledged a lot, and your best one on both of those is out of the lineup. But he just doesn't seem to have a level of creativity offensively to overcome a bad hand. And right now he's got a bad hand, but you haven't seen him really elevated offensively at all. And it's been very frustrating. Luckily, we're real close to Joel returning, hopefully, knock on wood. But yeah, it's been disappointing.
I see Puppa's in the chat. I think I'm saying that correctly.
That is correct.
We need more cutting, not just everyone standing on the 3-point line. And the one thing is, I get it. These guys aren't great shooters, so you do need a degree of gravity to make sure those cuts work correctly. Kelly Oubre, good cutter. Caleb Martin, good cutter. It just feels like you could be trying some other stuff on the weak side, and he hasn't done it. And look,
especially because last year I felt like they cut pretty often at the start of the season too. Now, obviously, Joel was playing, but still, that doesn't mean you have to give up on trying to be creative offensively just because Joel is out.
Completely agree. They were running a lot of that two-man game with Maxey and Joel at the beginning of the year, and it felt like they were getting a lot of those great weak side cuts. So, look, to sum up my thing on Nurse here, I get it. In 3 months, if Joel is healthy and this team can find a degree of consistency and get into a groove and start to learn each other, I think we could look back at this time and laugh and just be like, man, that was terrible, but it doesn't really matter right now. But we're in it right now, and they need to win a game, and I just don't think he's covered himself in glory. I think it's kind of gone back to my point. Like, Derek, I always say this. I love digging into the details on, they ran a double ball screen there,
right.
Nice little flare screen, a hammer set, all those things. Like, as much as the coach matters, Joel Embiid is the guy who's driving the bus here.
So let's get to that part of it where the 76ers folks, they have the worst record in the NBA. Didn't expect to say that after 8 games that the 76ers would have the worst record at 1-7 in the NBA, but they do right now. 2-8 for the Raptors and the Bucks, 2-5 for the Wizards. You also have a 2-win team with the Utah Jazz, 2-7 in the 9 games played for them. But the 76ers do have the worst record in the league. With that, though, Rich, one of the things that I did, all the negative things that we had to talk about because they just went on a winless road trip. I pointed out to try to bring some positivity to the conversation that while they are 1-7 and right now in the conference, in the division, you're looking at, let's say, the Brooklyn Nets. They're 2 games up on the Sixers right now, and they are 4-6. That's the 8th seed right now in the Eastern Conference Atlantic Division right now. As far as the conference goes, they are currently behind the Knicks at 3 games right now. And it's 8 games. We're 8 games in, so they can come back. We saw at the end of last season, they went on an 8-game winning streak when Joel Embiid came back to push themselves into an opportunity at least to be in that top 6. Did not happen. They got into the play-in game, mopped up the Miami Heat, and of course earned the right to play the Knicks in the first round. So we know with Embiid on the floor what we think they're capable of, and then we haven't seen Tyrese Maxey and Paul George play with him. So even with the worst record, you just brought it up again, Joel Embiid is the one that really hovers over it all to get them back into a conversation where right now, currently, the Eastern Conference is not all that good.
You guys said it on the pod the other night, too. And when, Devon, you brought up that 8-game winning streak at the end of last season, there are going to be teams like Brooklyn. You said them. They've been feisty early on this year. They are not going to be trying.
No, they won't.
They're going to fall out of it.
So the Sixers are automatically going to be able to pick up some wins at the end of the season. It just, you can't let this hole get too deep.
Too deep, yeah.
Right? It's pretty deep already. And it's funny that the Bucks, who have basically had their guys healthy. I know Middleton has not played, but they've had Giannis.
By the way, they lost today too to the Boston Celtics.
I'm really annoyed that I cannot properly appreciate Milwaukee's struggles and Doc's struggles because the Sixers are spoiling it for me.
It's so funny that I've been singing shorthanded Doc's praises while pretty much full cupboard, Doc. It's just been a disaster. I mean, what's going on? They're 2-8. That's impossible.
Oh man! And again, they
And
lost.
even like Dame even looks like he's playing pretty good. Maybe not peak Dame, but better than last year, and they still have no chance.
As bad as Nurse has been, I mean, Doc is the least valuable coach of the year so far. That's a joke.
And
Are
they
you
lost
kidding me?
at home when Giannis had 43, 13, and 5 assists with 2 blocks in this game against the Boston Celtics. Lillard with 14, 15 for Portis off the bench, and Green knocked down 12 for the Bucks. But Jason Tatum and the Boston Celtics were just too much. To your point, they may catch on too, but at least they're right there with you. You don't have to worry about them at the moment. It's everyone else in front of you. And at the end of the year, as you just pointed out, the Pistons, you're going to play them. You're going to play the Brooklyn Nets. Those, even Charlotte, as much as
The
we
Wizards,
give them early praise,
Wizards, Raptors,
they're probably going
Hornets.
to drop down too. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Winona said, "Why y'all tripping about the early start?" Winona, I'm not like tripping.
I'm tripping.
It's just
It's bad.
it's just really bad. I don't
Yeah,
like watching
it's
it.
bad basketball.
I think we understand that. Like, look, there is a roadmap for these guys to get their what together, and for the middle of the season to be enjoyable, and the end of the season to be fun, and for them to be a decent playoff team, and to be excited about them. More excited than we were last year with Joel being hurt as well. It's just in the moment right now. We do a show every night, and this has been really hard to watch. There's not a lot of positive takeaways that we can have on a nightly basis. So, hopefully, Jared McCain, what have you guys thought about him so far?
You can dribble.
I know.
And on this team, that's a revelation, man. And look, I think for the most part, he shot the ball well the other night from 3. I think when Joel comes back and Tyrese comes back and he's put in his more natural role, that 3-point shooting is going to be more of a key. The stuff that he's trying to create inside of the arc, which I still think he's trying to navigate his size and athleticism disadvantage and might struggle with that for quite a while.
He rims out on so many floaters.
And he's forcing the floaters because there's no chance to actually challenge anyone at the rim. But I think that's going to be less prevalent because you're just not going to need him to do that. He's not going to, unless he's attacking a really wild closeout, you're not going to ask him to create all that much. I think the passing has been okay. A 3-point shot, I'm always going to believe in. I don't even care what the numbers are. And I think he hadn't hit a 3 up until the last game, right? I think it was over on the season up until that point.
Over, and then he knocked down 2 against Memphis.
Right, yeah.
1 against the Suns and 4 against the Lakers.
But I believe in his shot. I believe in the decision making for the most part. I believe in the effort defensively, and I think he's got pretty good strength. Man, if he could just move his feet a little bit laterally, that would be great. Like turning TJ McConnell into a drive threat was eye-opening. But for the most part, I think he's been decent as a rookie. Obviously, I think when the team is healthy, I don't know if he's going to be in the rotation because we saw against, was that Memphis, where he had the really bad 3 minutes and it was yanked. He's going to have a lot of those moments as a rookie. He just doesn't know what he's going to, what he's doing on that end. He doesn't know the team concepts. It's nothing against him. I think for the most part, he was good at that at Duke. It's just going to take time. It's going to take time for him to learn it, time for Nick to trust him. But for the most part, I'm probably more confident in him being a role player when he has adapted to the league than I was before the season, while still acknowledging there's that very real defensive limitation that it's going to take a while to get through.
So as Derek says, he can dribble. With that dribbling, Rich,
not a lot of them on this
he
team.
can get to the paint.
Yeah.
And while he can't get to the paint, he's just trying to figure out how to knock down those floaters, how to get those scoop shots to not roll all around the lip of the rim and fall off, and instead go through the rim and give himself an opportunity to get those 2 points there. So those are some of the things. And now that he is starting to knock down those outside shots, it is encouraging to see that. Derek, as you talked about, he was 0 for the month of October.
Right.
And then November now, he is shooting from behind the 3-point line 41%. With the only game that he did not make a 3-pointer was against the Clippers when he was 0 for 1 in that 12 minutes of play. Right. So right now he's starting to show that. So he's getting a little more comfortable. He's averaging 11 points for the month in the 4 games right now, and they're going to need him. And when those players do come back and get into the lineup, and he is spotting up outside the 3-point line, getting passes from them with less attention on him because of the attention that they are garnering from the opposition, it's going to be, I think we're going to get a chance to see him in the role that they envisioned for year 1 of Jared McCain, and not anything that anybody, expected anymore from him.
Yeah, and I think you guys are framing that correctly, where he's still got a long way to go.
Sure.
But because of what this team currently has, he probably pops a little bit more than he should, and he probably should have a much longer leash than he should, because who else are you going to give the ball to?
Yeah.
One other thing that I've been a little bit positive about over the West Coast trip, I've been positive about Yabu in general, but I think even though he is undersized at center, they can get to some lineups where they're pretty good switching 1 to 5, right? And Kyle Lowry, who is playing too many minutes, I agree with that, with what you guys have said so far. He's kind of critical in that because you can't really post him up still. He's still got that junk in the trunk. He's still really strong in terms of that stuff. But with PG now in the lineup, you have a little bit more wing depth. You're able to be more versatile on that end. I would like to see that a little bit more. I have seen enough minutes from Yabu where I'd like to see that, and I'd obviously like to see him play the 4 with Joel as well. Like I think there is some options with him. So I've enjoyed Yabu so far.
And before we get to the keys to the games or key matchups to the game for the guys here and myself, we do want to let everybody know that after we're done with the pregame, our first watch along of the season is tonight against the Charlotte Hornets. And we hope that you can stick around with us. You're going to be watching the game. The Eagles will be done. They'll pick up the victory. And with them picking up that win, you can come out, hang with us, watch the Sixers. Hopefully for them and you get their first win in a while. When they get back here in Philadelphia, and their first home win, isn't it? Yeah, their road win was against Indiana Pacers. So hang out with us for the watch along. We would appreciate that. It's our first one of the season. So that will happen a few minutes after we're done with the pregame. We'll be with you for a watch along tonight. And let's check in at the arena right now as we tap in ahead of the Charlotte Hornets and Philadelphia 76ers with Kyle Neubeck. Kyle, it's good for them to be back home. Maybe.
Is it? Are we sure about that? Is
Maybe.
anything good in Sixers world right now, Devon? Or are we just pretending to try to get through the day?
Second. We'll get to you.
Just let him keep going.
Let
He'll
him
be
keep
fine.
going. Let him talk to himself. Well, nice backdrop there for Kyle with the Sixers there in the back. But, yeah, man, just good for them maybe to be back home with them being back on their home floor looking to pick up their first win. They have a tough stretch this week. So if they can start off their homestand here with the Knicks.
Do we know, can Kyle hear us? Kyle, motion if you can hear us. Okay.
Yeah, he can hear us. Well, with the Knicks and the Cavs on Tuesday and Wednesday in a back-to-back, and Orlando on Friday, it will be really nice for them to return home after that tough one and get this victory here. Get this victory here tonight, and that is part of the keys to the game. Just home court, man. Home court, front of your home fans.
Let's be real. How dead is it going to be in there?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. It really is.
Those Sunday night games during football.
Those are rough because
we might be able to hear Kyle laughing on when there's a bad play on the press row.
That'd be like the old days, man.
Yeah.
Like the old days. But Kyle, yeah, man, just being back home, maybe there's something that can give them a little bit of a spark.
Yeah, I mean, if you're expecting me to be PD positive over here, I can't say that I think home court advantage is going to play much of a role tonight. Unless our friend Prince Blue, who's always checking in with us, I got to meet it down at the game tonight, was mocking me for looking sad and frustrated with the team before the game even started. I guess, you have to hope that the one thing I would say about playing at home, you just always hope that the role players shoot better. So between Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, Kyle Lowry, those guys, oftentimes the splits between home and road from three are pretty dramatic, right? So now they've been poor everywhere right now. So I'm not sure how much of a difference that'll make, but I think the good news, if there's any right now, is that they are one game closer, one step closer to Joel Embiid being back in the lineup, and then hopefully we can start evaluating this like a real basketball team again.
The key to the game, Joel comes back next game. I mean, you're not lying.
Yeah, I guess what you've mentioned before that LaMelo is one of those guys that you really enjoy watching live, but you've only done it maybe once or twice. What are you looking forward to watching him in this game specifically? And I guess the Sixers matchup against him as well.
I think it's just the chaos element, right? Like he's liable to throw a 3/4 court pass. Maybe he'll pull up for a 35-foot three. He can throw passes from all angles, right? Like he's a really creative and at times destructive playmaker, right? Like he lives life on the edge in all the ways that you possibly can. And I think, for the Sixers, it could go either way, right? Either he could walk in here and they're unsettled and the synergy's bad and blah, blah, blah. And that just leads to a lot of run outs and transition points and him picking them apart because they're over aggressive. Or LaMelo leans a little too far into, the high wire act, and the Sixers, if they've been good at anything defensively, it's forcing turnovers, right? So maybe they're able to turn LaMelo over, they're able to get out in transition, get some easy buckets, and they can turn it into that type of game. One thing Nick Nurse did say pregame was that transition defense is top of mind for this team, that it's something that they have not been good at, that they want to lock in on. And so this is a great team to have to try to do that against, not necessarily because they have a ton of great transition guys, but because LaMelo, as both a pull-up shooter and a hit-ahead passer, is somebody who can pick you apart in that way.
Yeah, man, and that is going to be key tonight with this basketball team, the Charlotte Hornets. The way you mentioned LaMelo living on the edge, the half-court alley-oop passes that he throws. They have another tough matchup tonight with the young guy and Brandon Miller, and trying to slow him down. But even with that, the first time that Paul George is home tonight, Kyle, and having the chance to play in front of the home team. Did Nick Nurse talk about a minute restriction again with him? How much would that be, if so? And if not, does this look like a game where he could possibly get into a much better groove?
We did not get into it pregame. I think what he had said at the tail end of that West Coast trip was it was probably going to be another game or two of Paul easing into it. So I would imagine tonight that'll be another one of those games. Now, does that change if they reach, halfway through the third quarter and it's a tight game and it looks winnable? I think certainly it's flexible, right? Because this team has to be realistic about, they've only been in so many games, right? We can talk about the 1-7 record and all the losses. I think just as big a concern is the fact that they're not even in a lot of these games by the time the third quarter is over. So I would imagine just Paul George as a competitor probably looks at it and it's like, look, at some point I got to raise my hand and get in there if the minutes restriction is close, but the game is close. So I would monitor that for sure. But I think if it trends the way the games have been recently, I can't imagine that they're going to put Paul George's health in jeopardy in a game where they're down, 15 or 20 points in the fourth quarter.
Yep. All right, man. Well, we appreciate it. Go enjoy the game. Of course, we get ready for the watch along, and we'll check in with you post game, and let's see if we're talking about a victory. Thanks, man.
Do have a very important ask. You got to let me know if Franklin makes his shot so I can keep track of it.
I have been tracking it, Derek, so I will. I'll do my best for you. I promise. Enjoy the game, boys.
Thanks,
by
Kyle.
the way, if you want to talk about something they need to do, Nick Nurse is not saying enjoy the game before games this year. He always has. They're not winning games. They haven't won a game at home yet. So I don't know. Maybe there's something to that.
Maybe there's something to that. Nick Nurse knows something that we don't know, hopefully, and getting that victory. Thanks, Kyle. We'll check in after the game. Kyle Neubeck joining us live from the arena. You can, of course, read his post-game reaction to the game at allphly.com and check out his good, bad, the ugly, the instant observations from him as the game goes on. Let's also check in with the starting lineup here tonight, as the 76ers will go with the usual starting lineup now, with Tyrese Maxey out of the lineup, Paul George back, Kyle Lowry and Kelly Oubre there in the backcourt. In the front court, Caleb Martin, Paul George, and Andre Drummond at the 5. No changes there.
Yeah, I don't think anybody really expected to change. My one request is, can we not get 32 minutes of Kyle Lowry? Like, I don't really know what that looks like, right? Because the last game they played McCain 31. So it's not like they even sat him on the bench, but just, I don't know.
All right, more.
But then again, it's like, well, what do I want? Reggie Jackson? Well, no, I don't really want that either.
But Eric Gordon was the DMP last game. So
but I think he was a DMP because they specifically want someone with a little more on-ball creation.
Yes.
Which means it's either Lowry or Reggie Jackson or...
Fire it up, Reggie. Fire it up, Reggie.
She was bad the other game.
Fire it up.
I feel bad for Kyle. I think he's Kyle Lowry. I never feel bad for Kyle.
No, because he doesn't feel bad for you either. So why would you? Just kidding. We love Kyle.
Kyle Lowry's just been overtaxed so far this year, and I think he can help these guys with his smarts, but it's got to be
in his 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, per game.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's get to our pick segment here. And the pregame pick segment is brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up.
SB with a good point. Jeff Dowtin. Give me a little Jeff Dowtin. I'm at the point where I will take a little Jeff Dowtin.
He wasn't dressed last
If it means
game.
you can drop, is he not dressed?
He wasn't.
No,
last
in the
game.
injury reports.
No,
He's not
no.
in
He wasn't.
Delaware.
He just wasn't
Okay.
dressed. Yeah, so I don't know.
I wouldn't mind Dowtin a little bit if it means you can drop Kyle down to 22, 25 minutes. I'd be okay with that.
Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's get to our picks here for tonight. I
Sure,
put
these will
together a
be right.
same game parlay. Rich threw one in there for just a individual play, and that is, Rich, what do you have?
Paul George, 3+3. He's like, hey, he's going to have a huge night tonight. Paul, let it go, man. Let it go.
Fire it up, Paul George.
Seriously, if Nick Nurse is just going to keep running those basic ball screens for you, let it go, man. Like, and as Derek has said, even if somebody's up at the level and trying to contest, he can still rise up and shoot over him. That is his current superpower in the modern NBA. I mean, his versatility is also part of it too. Paul, let it go. I think he has a big night tonight. So.
That's a good odds there, too, at plus 115 for Paul George to knock down 3. The same game parlay that I put together did include a Sixer and a Hornet. Andre Drummond, over 12.5 rebounds. We know he's more than capable of doing that. He has to stay on the floor to do so. Can he do that against a young front court in Charlotte? And then LaMelo Ball, while he does fire some threes away, 4.5. I just said under.
Yeah.
Just said under. He can make 4. We know he's more than capable of making 4, 5, 6. 4.5 under. That's the same game parlay. Derek is keeping track so he can mock me at the end. And if you want to tail that, myself
Screenshot
and
this right
Rich,
now.
this pregame pick segment again was brought to you by Bet365. Use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus and physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER.
I do feel obligated to remind you that LaMelo launched 16 three-pointers the other night.
He can go 4 for 16. It's possible. If he's off, he's off.
I think one of the bonuses for him, he might be able to just get to the basket a little bit easier against the Sixers team, so he might not
a lot of resistance
quite
there.
as reliant.
Yep. All right. Well,
We'll
that'll
see.
do it.
We'll see, man. We'll see.
Hey, you got a prediction, or are you staying away from that? All right.
I'm staying away.
Staying away from it.
Here's my prediction. A more competitive game than we have seen.
They better be against this Hornets team.
For the most part this season.
Yeah. The 4-5 Hornets are in town to take on the worst record in the league, the 1-7 Sixers. Will they get off the snide here tonight? Well, we'll talk about it with you here on the show as per our watch along. And again, our pregame show was brought to you by Coors Light. Visit CoorsLight.com/PHLY basketball to get Coors Light delivered or find a store near you. We'll be back in a few minutes with Rich, Derek, myself, and Bree, and all of you. Stick around with us. The Eagles, they've already done their job. Can the Sixers now do theirs and pick up a home win, their first of the season? We'll see. Hang out with us. Coming up next, the watch along right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.